Mr. Thompson, please open the door. Your wife is under arrest. The knocking at the front door was more than just noise. It was deliberate, heavy, like hammers crashing against my chest. Each thud sent tremors through the walls, until one picture slipped askew. Oakwood Heights was supposed to be a peaceful place at this hour. Children studying, sprinklers hissing on the lawns, porch lights flickering on in a cascade. Yet that voice outside pierced the quiet, cold and authoritative, transforming my serene street into the opening scene of a dramatic thriller. When I finally opened the door, I saw them. 3 men stood shoulder to shoulder, their uniforms immaculate. The dark navy fabric glimmered with shiny brass badges, pistols drawn and at the ready. Their sunglasses masked their eyes, even though the sun had already vanished. No pleasantries were exchanged, not even a cursory smile. Only the oppressive silence of men who had come to make an arrest. The leader stepped closer, boots crunching against the gravel, his voice cold and clipped, commanding, "Step aside, sir. She's coming with us." My mind went blank. Why was it my wife? Why now? They projected confidence, weapons raised, a suffocating presence. But what they failed to recognize was that my wife was not a frightened woman lurking in the shadows. She was far from a victim. They had no idea who they were about to confront. Clad in her own uniform that commanded respect, the moment she stepped forward, the illusion of their authority would begin to unravel. When she revealed her true identity, their badges and guns would signify nothing. Just 3 months earlier, Oakwood Heights had felt like a fresh start for us. Amy and I had endured our fair share of moving challenges. So when we finally signed for our home on Maple Drive, we believed we had found our haven. The neighborhood seemed idyllic. Manicured lawns, cheerful neighbors waving, children playing on bicycles. It appeared so safe, calm, almost too perfect. From the outset, the HOA made their presence obvious, inundating our mailbox with letters that oozed with pettiness and thick legal jargon. Your mailbox exceeds the height limit. Your hedges aren't uniformly trimmed. The final straw was a $90 fine for the garden flag Amy proudly hung on our porch, emblazoned with red, white and blue, featuring a soaring eagle. A flag anyone would be proud to display, yet in Oakwood Heights it apparently marred the visual harmony of our community. Barbara, the HOA president, took it upon herself to enforce these ridiculous regulations. She'd traipse around with a clipboard, as if running a military operation. Something unsettling lay beneath her fake smiles and plastic authority. She relished commanding power, even over trivial matters like mailbox specifications and garden flags. Amy, however, faced it all with grace. She'd share a laugh, shake her head, and remark, "They have no idea who they're dealing with." I initially thought her words were light-hearted banter. But then I caught her occasionally glancing at those letters before neatly filing them away. There was no anger, no despair, only preparation. What Barbara and the HOA didn't realize, what no one in the neighborhood knew, was that Amy was not just an average homeowner or my beloved wife. She held a position that wielded true authority, capable of silencing rooms by uttering a single command. She never boasted about it, never slipped it into casual conversation. Yet gradually it dawned on me. She was waiting for the day someone would push their luck too far. That day had arrived. When the urgent banging came at our door, I feared Barbara had escalated matters. Fruits of passive aggressiveness had morphed into summons. Sending police, or those impersonating police, crossed a perilous line. The 3 individuals on my porch appeared too polished, too rehearsed, their boots pristine, badges gleaming like prop store replicas. Despite their drawn firearms, They looked convincing enough to intimidate most. "Step aside, sir. Your wife is under arrest," the lead officer droned, voice devoid of inflection, mechanical, as if reciting a script that had been rehearsed too many times. While Amy must have heard the commotion from further in the house, her footsteps sounded resolute as she approached. No rush, deliberate. Emerging from behind me in the doorway was Amy, not clad in pajamas or casual wear, but in her impeccably pressed uniform. There was no mistake. She'd chosen this outfit purposefully. The trio of supposed officers stiffened. Their eyes flicked from her badge to the stripes on her sleeves, taking in her poised authority. For a split second, silence loomed heavier than their weapons. "Ma'am," one of them stuttered, "you'll need to come with us." Amy remained unwavering, her voice clear and commanding. "Drop your guns." She didn't shout. Her tone was low and sharp enough to slice through the tension. The men faltered, betraying uncertainty in the slight tremor of their hands. They weren't prepared to confront someone with superior rank. Barbara had emerged on the sidewalk, clipboard in hand, a smug expression on her face, fully confident in her triumph, believing she had executed her HOA war's final move. But as she watched the men hesitate, saw Amy's badge glimmer in the porch light, her smirk faded away. At that moment, I realized Amy had been biding her time for this exact moment. The fines, the intimidation, the harassment, she had navigated it with remarkable calm, letting them take their shots, allowing them to think they were dominant, until the moment arrived when her authority, real authority, not just bureaucratic red tape, rose to reclaim her space. On that porch, the atmosphere pulsed thickly, the 3 handguns poised in the air, yet not one of the officers dared to shift an inch. Amy didn't lower her gaze. She didn't soften her voice. It was her uniform that spoke volumes. "I said drop your guns," she reiterated, every word precise, resolute, and authoritative. The leader could only fidget, his confidence draining away as she stepped closer. One of the others muttered quietly, "She outranks us, doesn't she?" Amy took a single step nearer, affirming, "Not just ranking, outranking, and you know it." That was the crucial moment. The man on the right surrendered first, carefully placing his pistol on the porch railing. The second man followed suit, raising his hands in a placating gesture. The leader hesitated, stubbornness etched on his face, but Amy held his gaze firmly until his weapon clattered onto the ground below. "Now, badges," she commanded. They hesitated again, yet already their expressions betrayed a hard truth. Those shiny emblems were nothing but decorations, void of authority. One by one, they unclipped their badges and tossed them at her feet. Barbara's voice sliced through tension from the sidewalk, demanding, "What are you doing? Arrest her! She's the criminal!" In a voice like rolling thunder, Amy interjected, "Enough. These men aren't police. They're imposters. And you, Barbara, are the one who orchestrated this." Neighbours began peeking from behind curtains as porch lights ignited along the street. Everyone was suddenly aware of Barbara's power play. It was no longer happening in the shadows. The HOA president sputtered in a futile effort to maintain her authority. Yet the sight of 3 men disarmed and stripped of their facade overwhelmed her. A clipboard looked feeble next to Amy's badge. Standing beside my wife, the reality hit me like a freight train. Barbara had tried to muscle her way through our community, but Amy had just dismantled her entire game. And the revealing part? This was merely the start of Barbara's descent. When the flashing lights finally approached, real deputies arrived, actual cruisers, and out stepped Sheriff Daniels, who quickly comprehended that this was far from routine. With just a glance at Amy's badge, and then at the officers before him, he shook his head. Impersonating officers, that's a felony, he murmured. Moments later, his deputies sprang into action, cuffing the men as neighbors watched intently, phones capturing every moment. But Barbara wasn't done yet. With her face aflame, she marched forward, finger jabbing furiously at Amy. You can't arrest them! I issued the order, I control this community, and she refused to pay her fine. The sheriff turned his steady gaze at her, calm but frosty. Let me get this straight, he said. You dispatched armed men posing as police to someone's residence over a $90 fine? Barbara stood frozen, words failing her. The crowd erupted in softly amused whispers. Amy stood in silent triumph, her presence commanding. Barbara was digging her own grave. And now the sheriff continued coolly. You've inadvertently confessed to conspiracy. You're coming with us too. The expression on Barbara's face was priceless as her confident veneer shattered, leaving her sputtering helplessly as deputies took hold of her arm. For months, she had tormented neighbors with threats, fines, and the guise of authority. But under the flashing lights, her real self was laid bare. She was no longer the reigning queen of Oakwood Heights, just another resident in cuffs. Meanwhile, Amy stood taller than ever, unshaken. The HOA meeting just a week later bore no resemblance to those that came before. Barbara's arrogant lectures had vanished. She was locked up while awaiting charges of conspiracy and impersonation. The board sat silently, humbled and scrambling with papers that had lost their previous wrangle. Neighbors who had once whispered now spoke openly, stopping me on the street to express gratitude toward Amy. Many even offered apologies for their earlier silence, having endured threats of foreclosure over trivial misconduct. One older couple relayed tales of being coerced by Barbara into donations to her community fund. The truth emerged brightly now. As for Amy, she returned to work without fuss, never flaunting her role or badge. It wasn't about recognition. It was about drawing a line that should never have been trampled. That night, as we sat on our porch, crickets humming in the trees, I told her Barbara chose the wrong fight. Amy merely smiled, sipping her tea. No, she said, she chose the wrong woman. And thus, the chapter of Barbara's rule in Oakwood Heights came to a close.